Hello, and welcome to day 14 of the Ability event. I'm Joseph Jones, I'll be your host today, and I'd like to thank you for joining us as today's talk is an ABILITYx Talk with Jane Dunhamn, who is a founding member of the National Black Disability Coalition and its current director, with over 40 years of experience working in the area of the intersection of race and disability. We're looking forward to this presentation today and glad that you could join us for this very important topic. I hope you'll be able to join us for more presentations and programs throughout the next several weeks as we celebrate the 30th anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act. I thank you for your support of the Ability event, and I hope that you'll enjoy today's presentation. Have a great day.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to week 2 of Embracing the Difference Globally, the Ability event. Every day this week, we are going to be discussing about the intersection of race and disability. My name is Khadija Ali, and I am an assistant professor at St. Cloud State University in the Rehabilitation and Addiction Counseling program. I am a Black female, and I'm wearing a long sleeve black blouse and a hijab, which is a head covering. I'm sitting at my desk in my office at home, and behind me is a bookshelf. I'm happy to introduce our ability speaker, Jane Dunhamn, who will not be able to join us today due to some emergency. Jane Dunhamn is a parent with a child, with an adult daughter with a disability. She is the founding member of the National Black Disability Coalition. Jane is a strong and has been a long advocate for people with disability from racial minority communities. She is a recognized, nationally recognized speaker. She has lectured at numerous universities, including Rutgers, Princeton, and New York University. And now I'm going to go ahead and read the letter from Jane Dunhamn, and I'm sorry she could not be with us this morning. Jane Dunhamn, Director of National Black Disability Coalition, talk on the 30th anniversary of the ADA. Good morning. My name is Jane Dunhamn, and I'm the director of the National Black Disability Coalition. I am also a parent of an adult daughter who requires long-time support for all activities of daily living. I know from the inside the many and varied circumstances that impact Black disabled people and their families. Today, I'm here to talk about and celebrate the 30th anniversary of the Americans with Disability Act. The ADA, in its promise for access in Titles 2, 3, and 4, changed the footprint of America. For many who never knew or have forgotten what America was like before wheelchair access signs accessible buses, metro access systems, curb cuts, braille signage, captioned by shows and movies and sign language for televised emergency announcements. Disabled people did not have the opportunity to move freely in daily life, and America did not see disabled people moving freely in everyday life. For this, I say, thanks be to God for the countless disabled people and legislators who came together to work, to advocate, to push, and yes, to fight for the ADA. However, there is still critical work for a more just America for all disabled people. Legislation needs constant attention, revision, and reimagining to move forward to meet the ideals that call for it in the first place. In this case, the ADA was a beginning of providing equity and civil rights for disabled people. It's now during the 30th anniversary of the ADA, and we should examine what legislation is still needed to cover what the ADA did not address in order to move forward the ideal of a just life for all disabled people. It is the list of us who we have not included. Disability does not exist in vacuum. It sits in bodies that are also impacted by social class, economic status, and race. One way this difference shows up in the ADA is in the Title I, which covers employment. Black disabled people are the demographic who have the least employment opportunities. Although education does not come under the ADA, and IDEA covers the civil rights to education, there needs to be more work to identify, in quote, the why, as to the education disparity for Black disabled people. The knowledge that education is the portal to employment and upward mobility should not be any different for the disabled community. The non-disabled Black community have understood this and has worked at it for many years. We now have more professional Black people than in any other time in history. So what message are our Black disabled students receiving? My work over the past 30 years has been in the Black community on the intersection of race and disability. When I began my work with other small groups from across the country, we explained we could not leave our race identity and issues at the door in disability discussions. We argued that all of who we are needed to be at the table, and we could not separate racism when it came to disability discussions. It's only now, after 30 years of work, that race is at the disability table. However, there has not been much improvement in Black disabled lives. Change takes time and legislation. How long must we wait? What I have learned is that institutional racism against Black and brown disabled people is also demonstrated in systems the same way as non-disabled Black and brown people. I have traveled many roads, and I have seen many examples of disabled Black people whose lives are considerably impacted by injustice. So today, I'm here to tell the stories of Black and brown disabled people. They are many and they are difficult to hear, but we need our conscientiousness awaken to the sheer numbers of disabled people whose quality of life is less than standard. Although they are my stories, they are not individual. Until there is real research and reporting of Black disabled people, we can only guess at the numbers these stories represent. What we know is that institutionalized racism manifests itself both in material conditions and in access to power. It is especially dangerous because there is no identifiable perpetrator. In fact, its effects are evident as in action in the face of need and silence in the face of inequality. In action in the face of need and silence in the face of inequality are common threads in my stories. Today, I'm here to talk about how jails and prisons are dangerous places for anybody, and especially children and teens. Yet on any given day, approximately 4,500 juveniles, most of which are disabled and are under the age of 18, are locked up in an adult penal systems. Children as young as 15 can be prosecuted as adults in many states without review by a judge or a court hearing. How is it that at 14 years old, a child can be sentenced to 100 years of incarceration and it not be mentioned one time in any report or testimony that the child has lead poisoning, which cause neurological impairment in behavior and impulsivity? Today, I'm here to talk about the time I received a call from a physician who wanted a list of provider agencies for a male, 24 years, who was being released after 3 years of incarceration. She explained the young man had no evidence of family and that cognitively was incapable of providing or preparing food for himself. Today, I'm here to talk about the brother and sister who were in a video store at the mall while their mom shopped elsewhere. The teenager brother shoplifted a CD, and upon reaching the door, the young man was restrained by the store manager and police. His younger sister, who had a developmental disability, only understood that the police was doing something to her brother. She began to hit the policeman. The child was convicted of assaulting a policeman while her brother was only reprimanded for shoplifting. At the end of the day, the 13-year-old sister had to report to probation in the same office as adult men who are released from prison to probation. Today, I'm here to talk about the family whose adult son, who had autism, has ran out of the house in fun as a chase game with his direct support staff running behind him. He ran to the neighbor's home, who is a policeman. The policeman shot both the son and his staff. It was not until the mother arrived at the crime scene was it detected that her son was shot. Her son could not communicate that he was shot and was left in a police car until his mother arrived. There was never an investigation as to why a policeman shot through his front door rather than answer the door. Today, I'm here to talk about Casper, who was shot and killed at his local police station when he went for help because he believed his home was being robbed. Casper was a frail senior citizen who had epilepsy and was recuperating from heart surgery. His heart medication disoriented him. Upon entering the police station, he waved a toy gun, which he had to protect himself from burglars. The police found him to be a threat and shot to kill. Today, I am here to talk about the Peterson mother who asked and often for assistance to move to a safe neighborhood. Her neighborhood is riddled with gun wars. She explains that although she could teach other children how to protect themselves during gunfire, she cannot teach her adult daughter with significant disability who attends a day program how to protect her. Her daughter does not understand to lie on the floor or to immediately go to the back of the home when gunfire begins. Today, I'm here to talk about the young man with developmental disability who for years sold drugs on a corner where I waited for a bus to return home from work. He knew I worked at the Council on Developmental Disability. There has always been much talk about young men with developmental disabilities being taken advantage by drug dealers. It was clear this young man's support was from drug dealers and not provider agency. Today, I'm here to talk about Kathy, who was hit and killed by a city bus. Who was killed by a city bus. Kathy was a young woman who had developmental delays and was a wheelchair user who was supported by a provider agency. She liked to go across the street at night where there was no crosswalk or street light to a convenience store. There were many near misses with Kathy until one day she was hit and killed by a bus. Kathy did not have family in her life. She was a ward of the state. The provider agency said that there was no need to move her to a place where she could access a convenience store in safety if she did not want to move, because providing her choice in her life was most important. Today, I'm here to talk about the 10-year-old child who has CP, whose therapist explained to him that she was going to have people talk to him about the marks on his back because he was being beaten. He replied, "Yes, but I'm bad sometimes." After the case was filed, the determination was that it was a culture difference in how children were reprimanded and that the state did not become involved in cultural differences. Today, I'm here to talk about giving a home to a man who has mental illness. When we reached his boarding house, the door was locked. He had been at a disability meeting together, and it was past 9 p.m. He had a room which was dirty and smelled terribly. When I asked about the bathroom, he explained it was hard to get into because so many people used it. Today, I'm here to talk about giving a ride home to a young woman who is a wheelchair user who pulls her wheelchair up 2 flights of steps while sitting and bouncing one step at a time to gain access to her apartment. Today, I am here to talk about why a man with a CP must park his chair and bicycle in the lobby of his building because neither will fit in his accessible apartment. Today, I'm here to talk about 2 apartment buildings in 2 different states that were funded and managed by provider agencies. Both buildings are in urban cities. Both buildings have security systems much like federal buildings because of gun and drugs violence in the neighborhood. These buildings were not financed by random urban developers. They were financed by provider agencies whose responsibility is to provide a safe environment for their clients. Why are new apartment buildings for disabled people being built in dangerous neighborhoods? Today, I'm here to talk about why a disabled advocate who has CP and is aging must have fundraising for disability equipment because he has been assessed at not needing mobility equipment because he did not use them when he was younger. I'm most haunted by the numbers of adult people who live with family members, most of whom are grandmothers, who think it's okay for their loved ones to go to a day program and sit home for the remainder of the day or week because it's too hard for them to go out. The guardians always told me how proud they are of taking care of the loved ones. This seems so small, but it was the look on the individual faces as their guardians told me these stories that remains with me. I feel like there are countless I let down from having the freedom they are entitled. I wonder, does the disability community really understand what is happening in poor communities? I was once told by a white disabled man that disability does not exempt poverty. I questioned what responsibility did the disability community have to the least of us. It has not been answered by disability activists. So where do we go from here? The great news is 30 years later, there are thousands of activists who talk about race and institutional racism in disability. The challenge is to have active boots on the ground to demand legislation that will stop the injustice and provide quality of life for marginalized individuals. It is the best way to honor the 30th anniversary of the ADA and its promise to all disabled people. Thank you. And with that, I will also still go on and please apologize for not having Ms. Dunhamn today. And because of that, we will not be able to have any discussion as we would have liked to. Thank you all for joining us. And please join us tomorrow at noon Central Standard Time for the panel discussion with Sandra Simmons and Tamika Spruce. Again, thank you and see you tomorrow.